3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Research. Innovate.
Educate. This is RTP. This is RTP180.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the beautiful frontier on the campus of Research Triangle Park for RTP 180. How's everybody out there doing this evening? Awesome. It's Halloween. I was beginning to worry that you were all dead. That's good. Excellent. Now, quick show of hands. How many people have never been to an RTP 180 before? I've never been to an RTP 180. Awesome. We got a few there, a couple there. Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you very much. By another show of hands, how many people are seeing RTP 180 for the very first time tonight? Most of the same people. Awesome. How many people never answer questions involve raising your hands? That's called a paradox. You just broke the universe. Nice job, pal. Bit never gets old. Now, my name is Wade Minter. I will be your host for RTP 180 presented by our friends at RTI International. Our topic this month is cybersecurity. Everybody say, ooh. Everybody say, ah. Ah, it worked. Awesome. Now, the way this works is we'll have 5 speakers up here, 4 of whom you will see in person. They will speak for about 5 minutes on the topic of their choosing related to cybersecurity, at which point we will have 5 minutes of Q&A from you, our audience. So be thinking of those questions, because otherwise it's 5 minutes of awkward silence, and I get enough of that at home. Now, if you'd like to connect with us, I wish I was kidding. If you would like to connect with us socially, please do so using the hashtag RTP180. You can tweet at us, Frontier RTP. You can find us on Facebook Live. We're also broadcasting live thanks to our friends at PBSNC. Tell your friends to tune in. Now, normally, if you were here on an average day, you would see something that looks a lot like this. You are sitting in the region's only free, pause for dramatic effect, co-working facility. That's right. If you are in the heart, or at least the duodenum of Research Triangle Park, you can stop by and co-work here for free. There's also lots of fun activities outside. There's yoga, there's food truck rodeos, there's the box yard right across the street. Please stop by and take advantage of these facilities. You won't regret it. Now, we do the out-of-office happy hour on the first, second, and fourth Thursdays. The third Thursday is now. We don't do it here. But if you'd like to stop by around 5:30 for out of office, there is a fun event that you can swing by and cap off a nice Thursday. Now, the topic here is cybersecurity. I would like to note one thing here, which will become fairly obvious for those of you who are paying attention. We do not have any women speaking at this panel, which is a shame because there are lots of women in the area doing amazing stuff in cybersecurity and tech in general. We do have a woman-owned company represented here today. But for all of the women in the audience who are doing cool stuff in tech, or the women in the audience who are watching us live, if you have ideas for things that you would like to talk about, please reach out to us here at the Frontier. Ronan at rtp.org will be your contact. We'd love to have you on a future edition of RTP 180. But now it is time for our first speaker of the evening. He joined MCNC in 2013 and currently serves as the Vice President of Security Initiatives and the Chief Information Security Officer. Please welcome our first speaker, Chris Beal.
Cybersecurity. When I say that word, you're probably getting a picture popping up in your mind. And I'm willing to bet that that picture looks something like one of these. I see some heads nodding. I hear some laughs. I want to give you a different picture, a different way to think about cybersecurity. When you leave here tonight, and in the future, when you hear that word, I want a different picture popping up in your mind. But before we can do that, we need to go back in time. Way back. BC, before COVID. All right, you ready? Let's go. What do you think about when you see this picture right here? How about this? Human health. So there are a set of basic practices that we follow in order to try to get healthy and stay healthy. These are basic things that anyone can do, and most people should do. Things like washing our hands, exercise, getting adequate sleep, brushing our teeth, cleaning the environment around us, going to the doctor for regular immunizations, checkups. We have all kinds of things that we measure and monitor and keep track of in order to know our status with regard to our health. None of these things up here are tailored to a specific health condition. They're all general, basic things. Now, doing these things does not guarantee that we will never get sick. Most people don't reasonably have that expectation. Well, we call these things hygiene. So practicing good hygiene does two very important things for us. First of all, it decreases the likelihood that we will get sick. It doesn't eliminate the risk, but it makes it less likely that we will get sick. And the other really important thing it does is it reduces the impact. Inevitably, when we do get sick, it's not as big a deal. It's not a catastrophe. So practicing good hygiene makes us strong. It makes us resilient. It makes us healthy. Cybersecurity is the same way. There are a set of basic practices that we can follow in cybersecurity to get cyber secure and stay cyber secure. Now, I don't have time in my 5 minutes here to go into really any level of depth about these things, but perhaps some of our other speakers will touch on some of these, and you can ask about them during the Q&A. But this basic set of things are things like installing security updates, looking across our environments for vulnerabilities, the same things that the attackers are looking for, and fixing them before the attackers can exploit them, limiting our use of administrator rights, training and educating our end users, using multi-factor authentication, backing up important data so that inevitably when we do have a compromise, we have that data to go back to. Right? None of these things are tailored to a specific cyber threat. These are all basic things that anyone can do and everyone should do. So let's go back to our hygiene. And actually, I want to hit on one important point here. Just because one of these things is basic doesn't mean it's easy to do, right? It's easy for me to say, oh, well, you should just eat well, or you should just get good sleep, right? That can be a hard thing to do. And in the cyber world, you know, these things can be challenging. It's easy to say, well, just install your security updates, but that can be a hard thing to do given your environment. So I want to make sure you understand that. Just because these things are basic doesn't mean that they're simple or easy, but they are really important and everyone should be doing them. So if we go back to our hygiene analogy here, I remember earlier on I said we were going to go back in time to BC. In 2019, a new threat to our health emerged, COVID-19. So we had to evolve our basic practices, right? We had to invent new things in order to keep us safe. Things like distancing or wearing a mask. We had to come up with new tests to help detect the presence of this threat. And then we got these amazing new vaccines that folks should get in order to keep themselves healthy, right? We had to change our basic practices. None of the other ones went away, but we had to get new ones. It's the same way in the cybersecurity world. New threats emerge, and we have to evolve in order to keep up with those threats. So being cyber secure is not about next-gen, AI, high-tech, whatever. Those things are important tools, and they can help us, but that's not what cybersecurity is really about. Cybersecurity and being cyber secure is about doing the basic things well over and over again. And doing those basic things will decrease our likelihood of a security incident and decrease the impact of the inevitable incident when it does occur. So I want you, when you hear cybersecurity, I want you to think human health and how you can practice cybersecurity safely. Thank you.
Don't go run away. It's time for audience Q&A. That's right, you're captive up here for another 5 minutes according to my contract. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who gives us a question during audience Q&A will receive a gift card to 13 West here at the Box Yard, so you get to go home with some cash in your pocket. Already we got somebody who wants some cash in their pocket. That's awesome. Our first question will be coming to you right from back here near the back row.
Hi. I was wondering if you were aware of any threats on the horizon. I know you have these basic, I wouldn't say basic, these recommendations for security. Are you seeing anything that we as digital universe here should be paying attention to, or should keep an eye on as it comes to WordPress, plugins, all those different stuff that we're using? Thanks.
Yeah, so the emerging threats that are coming, what are things people need to be paying attention to in their day-to-day lives?
So the threat landscape absolutely changes all the time. There are constantly new vulnerabilities that appear. Some of them are mundane, some of them are pretty esoteric. But what I would want everyone here to understand is that the best thing that most folks can do to protect themselves is follow these basic things. Make sure you're installing your security updates. So if the new WordPress vulnerability is announced, right, you're on top of installing the patch for that, right? Implement multi-factor authentication so that when the next type of phishing attack is deployed, you're protected against that because you've already turned on MFA. So those basic things, for folks in the audience who are not cybersecurity pros, who are having to really pay attention to those details, this is the stuff the basic things that I would encourage everyone to work on.
All right, we got another question from here in the back. Apologize for only having one mic. Someone hacked into our microphones, I think.
My name is Sid Chopra. I'm actually a volunteer with the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, which is under the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They actually had a conference yesterday with the CISA, which is a cyber infrastructure security agency, about cyber hygiene. And this is a very, very important problem. One of the things I keep seeing not addressed is, what do we do with all these devices when we're done with them? You can't throw these things away. They've got all kinds of information. Have you seen anybody talking about disposal of devices?
That's right. The question is, for our devices that are being taken away, recycled, given away, what's the best way to keep them secure?
So that is an excellent question, and I will readily admit that I am not an expert in this area. So perhaps some of the other folks who are speaking here tonight might have more expertise than I. But generally speaking, for mobile devices, both iOS and Android, there are established mechanisms procedures that you should follow to make sure here's what you do to securely get all your data off of that device before you are going to sell it or dispose of it. So those are generally well documented, so I would encourage following those procedures. And then I've also always been taught throughout my 20-plus year career, if you have something that you are really worried about data recovery on, you need to physically destroy it, right? So that's sometimes problematic from an environmental standpoint, so you have to weigh which risk you're more concerned about. But certainly from the standpoint of hard drives and laptops, if you are truly concerned about data recovery on that, physical destruction of that device is really the best option for you. But again, I'm not an expert in that area.
Well, it's good to know that my kids are cybersecurity experts because they ruin every technology thing they touch. Awesome. We got another question over here from the party couch.
Hey, do you have any tips for motivating less tech-savvy people for instilling hygiene skills?
some ways you can take the somewhat reticent folks in your lives and convince them to practice good hygiene, or if you can convince me how to get my wife to do the software updates.
So I will be honest, the most effective metaphor I have found, and this is why I talked about this tonight, is this analogy of health. Right? Most people can relate to that, and they understand there are things I need to do to try to stay healthy, and being able to create that metaphor for them, that it's the same way in the digital world, and here are those basic things. That's the start. So just like it's difficult, it's one thing to tell someone you need to eat better, you need to exercise. Getting them to actually do that can be challenging. So it can be the same way in the digital world, but I think just the start of here are things you need to be concerned about, I think is a good way to begin the conversation.
All right, any other questions about cybersecurity and good digital hygiene to protect you and your loved ones? All right, we'll get our last question back here in the back.
Hi, thank you. I don't have a question per se, but I just wanted to answer that other gentleman's point about disposal of electronic media. So there is a concept which I gather is called reverse supply chain. So what you do is you find people who are engaged in reverse supply chain, and you can then give your electronic items to them, and they will make sure that it is disposed of and sanitized in the most appropriate way. And this also helps in terms of making sure that your phones and other items don't land up in landfills and other places, so that you are also being environmentally friendly by making sure that you give your items to a reverse supply chain management organization. I think there are a couple of them in the RTP. Maybe a Google or a Bing would perhaps show up some information. Thank you.
Great. Reverse supply chain logistics. I guess there's really not a whole lot to answer that. But if there was one thing you could leave as someone to take away that they could do directly when they get home to improve their security hygiene, what would that be?
One thing that everyone can do is install security updates, right? So every device you have, whether it's your laptop, your iPad, your phone, those things are constantly telling you, hey, there's an update that needs to be installed. And a lot of people ignore those and say, oh, I'll do that later. That's the one thing that's easy to do. You can go right now and install those security updates, and that's what I would encourage you to do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Chris Beal. And to the point about reverse supply chain logistics company, there's one I would recommend here in RTP, the Camden Institute. They are right down the road, and they will take your old computers, laptops, tablets, monitors, that sort of thing, wipe them, refurbish them, and donate them to local schools. I've done that with a lot of personal and business technology. Check them out, the Camden Institute here in RTP. And up next, we've got a cybersecurity practitioner and founder with 20-plus years of experience. He's currently building a cloud-native software platform at Jupiter One. Please welcome to the stage, Erkang Zhang.
Good evening, everyone. I was here 4 years ago, and a lot has changed in 4 years, including the stage. What's up with the other 3/4 of it? What happened to that?
We're runway now, you're a model.
Well, I don't know what to do with this now. So last time I was here, I talked about the state of cybersecurity being a cyber pandemic. And to clarify, it has nothing to do with the pandemic that we're in right now. Nothing to do with that. However, I think there's a lot that we can learn from what Chris talked about, and also what COVID-19 and this pandemic that we're in is teaching us. So I fundamentally believe, right, so there's a lot of things that we can do, as Chris mentioned just now, that we have to do the basics well. We have to do the security hygiene and do that well at scale. But in addition to that, I want us to think a little bit about what security teams, security organizations, and security professionals need to think about and need to do to win this pandemic, to this cyber pandemic. Now let's think about what we're doing to win against this physical pandemic that we're in right now. So there's research that we're doing to develop vaccines. There's research that we're doing to come up with antiviral drugs and so on and so forth. Now, how do we do that? The way I look at cybersecurity is in terms of wellness. And I fundamentally believe that the future of cybersecurity relies on the practitioners being more like doctors and wellness coaches in the digital world rather than the police. Well, we have seen so much where if you want a project dead in the water, you go talk to the security guys. And we've been, for the longest time, been the police and the blockers of the business moving forward because of all of the controls that we tend to put in place for the sake of cybersecurity. I think we have to change that mindset. This is a culture change. This is a mindset change. And the result of that will be that we will encourage and incentivize everyone in the organization to participate in security rather than to find ways to circumvent it. Now again, what do we do as cybersecurity practitioners? What can we do to improve and get back to the foundations and get back to the basics of cybersecurity and finding the root causes of solving this pandemic? Now let's look at this. Do they look similar? I find striking similarities between what a human body looks like and what a digital organization looks like. So 20 years ago, right, so we started down this path of doing DNA sequencing for human genome. And in order to understand ourselves better. And that is how we were able to come up with a vaccine so quickly today to counter and to win the battle in the pandemic. And this similarly, we have to have this type of understanding in cyber, in digital operations as well. Now, I'm not just talking about a device or a physical hardware or something with an IP address that's hanging out there in the network. There are so many of these software-defined granular elements that are impactful, that are part of the operations in cyber in the digital sense that we do not have a good understanding about. I think understanding these cyber assets is almost like doing a DNA sequencing for the digital company, for the digital operations. So think about a Slack user, think about a code repository, think about a pull request that the engineer make to make changes to the code, and think about how that code is deployed to an environment that now becomes an application that performs some function in the cloud or in a data center somewhere. Now, all of those are not just very granular individual elements in digital operations, but they are highly connected, just like every single cell in a human body. So what does that mean? And how do we address all of these challenges and get down to the root causes of the cyber pandemic? Now, I'll draw some parallel again to how we manage health, right? So a lot of these are very basic things. I would highlight one specific aspect, which is, again, understanding ourselves. What do I mean by that? What data are we talking about to understand ourselves? Now, this brings to my next point, which is the complexity. I think I heard a ring, and I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. That happened to me 4 years ago as well. So, at an organization level, I think we want to enable a much more collaborative way of addressing cybersecurity. We just released a book, and this is my book promotion as well, so check out the book. Now, what I want to highlight here is the data and the complexity that resides in data. And here we have a 5x5 matrix that talk about the data that we have out there and what we do about that data. Now, I would want to simplify this even further to say there are really only two categories of data that matter in security operations. And that's the data that provides structural awareness and the data that provides contextual awareness. Think about firefighters. If a house gets on fire and the situational awareness is telling you, hey, there's smoke and there's people screaming and the house is on fire, go put out that fire. But what the firefighter also wants to know is if the building is up to code. What is the blueprint? What is the weakest point? What is the blast radius? And all of those things is, again, those two type of data that matters. The structural awareness, the situational awareness. And that data is what enables us to really truly understand ourselves as a digital organization to provide the complete context and visibility to the operations that we run every day. Now with that, that's it. And I'll close with a little bit of a promotion to Jupiter One, my company. And that's what we do, is to help people understand themselves, their digital operations. Thank you. Questions?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you got questions, we got hands up everywhere. That's what I like to see. So we will start over here, and then we will come back there, make the circuit.
Hey, thank you for your presentation. One quick question is, what are some of the tips that you will give to the average user? We all get sick, right? And we all go to the doctor. So what happens when we get infected? What happens when we get attacked, when we get a virus or something? What are some of the things that we can do to take care of it? Thank you.
All right, so something bad has happened. What are some tips we can do to take care of it?
Well, that depends. The consultant of me is telling you that it depends. Now, I think the best that you can do is to understand the cause of that and how the treatment will interact with you on your individual level, right? So medical professionals are doing research in individualized specialty treatment, right? So if somebody gets sick with cancer, for example, right? So one drug and one cocktail may work and may not work. And the reason for that isn't necessarily because of the drug, but it's because of the DNA of that individual body, right? So I think that's part of what I'm promoting and proposing here is for us to truly understand if that treatment will work for you if you get sick in a digital sense, right? And similarly, from a proactive standpoint as well, you know, we can go out there and go to Costco and buy all of those vitamins and supplements on the shelf, and are you going to take every single one of those? Of course not. Now, if you truly understand what your innate weaknesses are, then you can be a lot more focused in both reacting and preventing that.
All right, got another question here in the back center aisle coming your way.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick clarification. This is a pretty good, interesting topic. So before pandemic and after pandemic, with respect to the cyber threat attacks, are there any analytics or, you know, is it becoming more or is it becoming because people have started working from home and also kids have been working from home, right? How is the trend? Are there any analytics to support, you know?
All right, the question is, we've moved into a new world of technology, post-pandemic, people have changed their lives. Does that alter the threat profile?
It does absolutely. It increases the attack surface. And every single organization out there, because of the pandemic, is accelerating their digital transformation. Every organization is becoming a technology organization, whether you like it or not, right? Because we have to support this remote workforce. And because of that, we have a lot more elements that we have to worry about, right? Because people are everywhere, technology is everywhere. And again, right, so that's another reason for us to focus on understanding the basics, doing the basics, and understanding ourselves.
All right, we've got time for one more question. One more question coming here, stage left.
I have been working on genome sequencing, so I know what you're talking about. I know some weakness in my heart with my genome sequencing. But I have a device, I have a computer at home. How can I, I'm doing exercise, the wellness program, I know, because I know that. How can I make my device to be in some wellness program, making them stronger, they will be cyber secure? That's something I'm missing.
So the man works in genomes. He's got a subject matter expertise, but he doesn't quite know how to make his home technology secure. What would you suggest?
So a lot of what I was discussing was more towards organizations for digital teams. But to address your question, so individually, what can we do? Chris previously mentioned about keeping up with the security updates. And I will give you one more tip, which is use MFA, multi-factor authentication, anywhere possible. Okay, so passwords, I feel like passwords were like floppy disks of technology. They've been so antiquated and they never die. So we should never, going forward, just rely on passwords to protect your digital life individually anymore. So use MFA, multi-factor authentication everywhere you can.
Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for returning speaker, Erkung Jung. We've had some great questions here, audience. Keep them up. We love it when we get Q&A from you, our audience, and you get a special prize to take home if you give a question. But it is now time for our third speaker of the evening. He's the manager of Information Technology Services at IEM, overseeing their Technical Assistance Center and IT systems. Please welcome to the stage, Mark Ferentz.
Thank you, everyone. So my name is Mark Ferentz. I'm the IT manager of IEM. A little bit about myself. I've been in IT for about 25 years. I've been with IEM for roughly 8 years. I've seen growth from 250 to about 800, 900 users right now. We are actively growing as a company. A little bit about the company. We are the largest woman and minority-owned crisis management firm in the United States. You can see by the numbers that we are actively involved. A lot of our customers are Department of Defense, FEMA, HUD, quite a few local and state government facilities. We've been in business for 36 years, applying our technology to each one of these areas. So what is a cybersecurity mutual maturity model certification? Well, so it's basically something that the DoD has come up to address limitations in NIST 800-171. I'm going to use my notes because there's a lot of acronyms here. What the security model is, it's basically 5 different levels of hygiene that are used to address your environment and make sure your cyber posture is where it needs to be. So for these practices, for the CMMC certification, it's basically going to cover federal contract information and controlled unclassified information. So by 2025, all federal contractors will need to have this certification in order to bid on contracts. So some of the challenges we've seen over the years have been user adoption. So with everything else, our user adoption, we've had to implement quite a few different applications to the users, multi-factor authentication, email security, URL blocks, cyber training, as well as cyber email campaigns. Now, as everybody knows who's in IT, user adoption is one of the biggest challenges we have. For the multi-factor authentication, it became quite a big deal for somebody to click on their device when trying to log in. Another thing they had issues with were the email security. So we had a lot of links that would come into our system from a lot of our clients, and these links were then thrown into our sandbox, which would then block them, and our users would complain about something like that. You know, we had to implement cybersecurity training. So we went with the Kevin Mitnick training area, and we were able to push that out to our users, and the requirement is to have them trained once or twice a year in order to meet the certification levels. We implemented a security operations center, so we had 2 individuals at one point that were managing the entire system, and that became overwhelming. So we had to implement the security operations center so we can manage all of the logs and files and everything. Another challenge were the CMCC board policy changes. These changes were rapidly coming across. You know, they would change their board members, which would then change the policies that we had to adhere to, and it became a huge challenge. Internal policies. So at one point we had 24 policies, and we had to add, I think, 35 policies to it, and then we would have to make sure that all of those policies were adhered to. Oops. Any questions? That's it.
All right. Time for questions about regulation policies and how the government's dealing with cybersecurity. Got a question right here with the red jacket. I'm going to put my mask on.
So I'm interested in something you said about federal contracts and people having to be certified in order to bid on federal contracts by the year 2025, I think it was you said. Is this applying to small businesses as well as large businesses, those with dealing with DOD and national security, or is it because of the electronic contracting bidding process? What is behind this? And how do they do it?
So a new policy coming into effect in 2025. Who does it apply to, and how will it be implemented?
Good question. So it applies to any entity that wants to bid on work for the federal government, the DOD. So if you are applying for a specific project, they will assign a specific level to that contract, and you have to meet that level in order to be able to at least bid on that contract. Then it would go through the normal contracting system, and you would either win or lose.
All right, other questions? Cool, we've got we'll go one over here, and then we'll come over here to the gray jacket.
So with the number of threats that seem to come about every day, why are you all waiting to 2025 to, or why is the federal government waiting to 2025 to implement this? In my head, you think you would try and implement it sooner. So I'm just kind of curious, that's 4 years from now, and the number of threats are compounding by the day. Why is it taking so long to implement?
Cool, so there's a phase-in period over several years. Why do that instead of more immediate action?
So, like I said, they've had a lot of turnover on the board, and I think it's just a matter of them solidifying the solution and then pushing out the certifications to their vendors before they come to us. I know a lot of us contractors right now, we're in the process of making sure we're at that point now. I think they're just giving everybody time to get caught up and to get their systems where they need to be.
All right, got a question here in the center aisle.
I've only seen CMMC mentioned in relation to GovCloud, specifically Amazon's GovCloud. I know that Google's got their own GovCloud as well. So two-part question. If I'm a small to medium-sized business and I adopt Amazon's GovCloud or Google's version of the GovCloud, am I immediately compliant? And do you have a preference on which one you think is ahead right now? Is it the Amazon GovCloud or the Google version of it?
All right, so for businesses who are adopting existing public clouds, do they inherit that certification, and is there a superior option if you want to be compliant?
There's no actual requirement to be in a GovCloud. There is certain aspects of the certification where you need to have data stored in the GovCloud. Right now, we use Amazon and we dabble a little bit with Azure.
All right, we've got one coming here, stage right.
Are policies like this being implemented in any other countries or just the United States? And if so, what are their timetables?
Cool, so the question is it an international operation to adopt these standards? And if so, what does it look like in other countries?
Well, ultimately, I would hope every country are adopting these, but right now it's just the federal government, the Department of Defense that are adopting these.
All right, we have a question straight back here. Yep, that's you. This isn't TV, I can see you.
Hey, I'm just curious, when you talk about entities that have to apply for this, what's the dividing line between how much an entity has to do it themselves versus how much they can outsource it, to someone else to help them get through all this?
So how much can a company conceivably do on their own, and how much do they need to bring in outside expertise?
Well, initially we had to bring in an outside vendor that came in and went through, and we looked at a gap analysis on what we had compared to what would be needed for the requirements. So once we had that vendor in place, we would basically work together to figure out where those gaps were and work to implement the software.
All right, and last question coming from the back here.
So all these requirements typically spawn opportunities for vendors to go and become a certifying agency or help in the certifications. How do you see this market evolving for consultants or vendors that can actually move people to the CMM model or the security model? Do you see any vendors? Can you name some names that are people already doing this? What is the opportunity for that whole ecosystem for people to play in that, helping companies get certified?
So the question is, this is a new era. There are going to be new regulations. It might spawn innovation. Is anyone out there doing it now? And what opportunities do you see for companies to help people with this?
Well, there are quite a few that have been certified already. I think this is a huge opportunity for local companies that are willing to get into something like this. I know it takes a lot on their side to be certified, so I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of local companies that are willing to put forth the effort. And they have to realize, again, this is the federal government they're dealing with, so it's going to be a lot of red tape, a lot of struggle just to get to that process.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Mark Ferentz. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has 25 plus years of diverse experience and is coming to us from Connect Cause. Unfortunately, a scheduling conflict prevented him from being here tonight, but because we're all technology people, he did record his talk. So please turn your eyes to the screen for this talk by Paul Bender.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Bender. I am the Chief Technology Officer at Connect Cause. Since I'm unable to present in person today, I've recorded my presentation of phishing and the human firewall. Let's start with the basics. What is phishing? Phishing is a form of social engineering, often carried out by nefarious individuals or groups, very often referred to as hackers. Their intention is to take your money, perform some type of corporate espionage, or they can even be just a disgruntled employee with a grudge to do some damage or exact some kind of revenge. Very often an email-borne attack, although it's important to note that it's not just email that is used as the method of attack. Sent to large numbers of users or power users individually are targeted sometimes, such as CFOs or CEOs, and they're attempting to phish or solicit sensitive information by posing as a reputable source, a trustworthy source. Let's take a look at how phishing works. First of all, the methods. Often phone, obviously email, snail mail, and direct contact. But remember that the most successful attacks are often a combination of all the above. Hackers often somebody who is familiar or you know, and attacks are strategically planned and executed. Very seldom are they random. There's some very common techniques and they have some very interesting names. A couple of the more important ones, or the ones that are that stand out, are spear phishing and whaling, whereby specific individuals such as CFOs and CEOs are targeted. Let's take a look at a pretty simple example. An email that looks like it should be trustworthy, coming from a trustworthy source, such as Microsoft, especially for a firm or organization that is using, say, Office 365 email, a trusted source. It sent an email soliciting users to click here with some important urgent message. When users do, they're directed to a sign-in page that looks eerily like the Microsoft sign-in page. Once users are there, they then capture the email address and often the password of that user, which then allows them to perform further hacks. Some key phishing statistics. There's been a 67% increase in security breaches over the past 5 years. According to the FBI, cybercriminals have stolen more than $12 billion from companies over that 5-year span. That's an attack occurring an average of every 39 seconds. 90+% of the successful data breaches started with a spear phishing attack. On the daily side, 156 million phishing emails. 16 million of them make it through company email filters, and about half of those actually get opened by recipients. Roughly 80,000 people per day end up victims of phishing attacks. So how do we defend ourselves against the phishing attacks? The human firewall. It's important to remember that there is no single silver bullet solution to addressing phishing or cyber criminals and hacking in general. At minimum, we have to accept reality that everybody is a target, no matter your size or your revenue. Every company is a target. On the technical side, it's important to use a reputable email provider, usually a cloud email provider like Office 365 or Google Workspace, as well as a comprehensive spam filtering service that may come with one of those cloud providers or be provided by another third party. Also using multi-factor authentication. The key, the real key, is building awareness by building what we call the human firewall. Train yourself and your staff to identify phishing by partnering with a cybersecurity awareness engagement system such as KnowBe4, Wombat Technologies, or Webroot. Building that most important of layers called the human firewall is simple and efficient by partnering with a security awareness training online partner. For example, they'll provide baseline phishing tests, send actual phishing emails to your users, analyze those results, then notify the users why we're doing this, what the benefits are, schedule online video training that lasts from 15 to 45 minutes, and then repeat that monthly or quarterly to ensure that you've given yourself the best chance of improvement and learning and that you've actually built that human firewall. I want to thank everybody for your time and for allowing me to present to you remotely. Please feel free to reach out to me at the information provided here with any questions or comments you have. Have a great day.
There's no Q&A. You can text him if you got questions. I don't know. And ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our final speaker of the evening. He joined the North Carolina Department of Information Technology in 2017 and presently serves as the interim state chief risk officer. Please welcome to the stage, Rob Main.
If you can guys just keep the applause up for just a moment. All right, that's enough. A little bit more? Okay, that's enough. I'm going to add a little bit of interactivity to this. So every time you hear me say the word cybersecurity, I want you to snap your fingers twice. Let's test that out. Cybersecurity. Thank you very much. So I want to tell you one thing, and I want to start with a declaration. I am passionate about cybersecurity. Very good. You guys are paying attention. And you people at home, you can also do this as well. But not only am I passionate about cybersecurity, I'm passionate about helping North Carolinians. And in my role as Interim State Chief Risk Officer, I have the unique opportunity to merge those two passions together. We have what's called the North Carolina Joint Cybersecurity Task Force, very nice. And what that does for the state is it provides a unique capability that frankly is a benchmark across the 50 states in providing the needed support to our local government communities in the event that they are in the midst of a cybersecurity incident. Very nice. So let me break things down for you at the local government level. I'm passionate about cybersecurity. I'm passionate about helping North Carolinians. We have a digital divide in North Carolina, and that divide is getting wider by the day. In helping the local communities with cybersecurity incidents, we're able to bring a capability to bear that otherwise they would not be able to do themselves in recovering from a significant cybersecurity incident. So a little bit about the Joint Cybersecurity Task Force. It is comprised of 4 main components, the first of which is the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, my agency. The second is the Department of Public Safety's Division of Emergency Management, within which there is the cyber element, and there's also, close. We were close. There's the cyber element, and there's also the State Bureau of Investigation. The third element is the North Carolina National Guard's Cybersecurity Response Force, and finally is the North Carolina Local Government Information Systems Association, IT Cyber Strike Team. Those 4 elements together are brought to bear in a cyber event. Let me describe what framework is in place that we use in order to reach those local communities that are impacted by a significant cybersecurity incident. Very nice. You guys are on the ball. And I'm the last speaker, so I'm the caboose on this train, and you guys are paying attention. So on a blue sky day, a cyber attack is essentially a local community's hurricane. We've taken, through our partnership with the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management, an all-hazards approach to cybersecurity incidents, using that same framework that would be brought to bear in hurricane relief efforts or natural disasters. We've applied that same lesson, those same lessons learned, that same framework in approaching significant cybersecurity incidents. The flag goes up, hey, we need help. We're in county X, Y, or Z, one of the 100 counties in North Carolina, a city, a K through 12, a community college. The flag goes up, we need help. With the Joint Cybersecurity Task Force, we can have boots on the ground in the affected community sometimes before the phone call asking for assistance has even concluded. We immediately begin incident threat hunting and forensic activities, and we come alongside the affected government agency, wrapping our arms around them, not in a literal manner, but coming alongside them, especially from our North Carolina Local Government Information Systems Association perspective, and using them as a peer-to-peer type engagement to say, we're from the government, we're here to help, but we really mean it. We're going to help you get past what is affecting you right now. A show of hands in the audience, and you can't do this at home, how many people drove on a North Carolina road to get here tonight? That should be all of us. How many took a ride-sharing service to get here tonight? Uber, Lyft, whatever the case may be. How many people have registered for a marriage license, bought a house? All of those are critical government services that are provided to North Carolinians. In the absence of an overarching force-multiplying structure such as our Joint Cybersecurity Task Force, you wouldn't be able to engage in those critical citizen services to drive here. Drive on a road provided by a governmental agency in North Carolina. Register to vote. register for a driver's license. All those services would be impacted. Life safety could be potentially impacted, and we would be all worse for the wear. So I'm very proud of our joint cybersecurity task force. It has definitely served the community well, served the state well. For that matter, in 2019, we had 10 ransomware incidents. In 2020, the first year of COVID, we had 20. Things are not getting any easier. The threats are becoming more sophisticated, and we need to bring all the resources to bear that we can to protect your community. I am from the government. I am here to help, and so is the Joint Cybersecurity Task Force. Thank you very much.
All right, questions about the Joint Cybersecurity Task Force coming at you from Rob Main. All right, we've got a question right here, and then we will go back a row.
Hey, how are you? Question for you. What level of collaboration is there between kind of the federal government and state government as it relates to cybersecurity?
Great. The question is, how do the states and federal government collaborate on cybersecurity?
Great question. Thank you for asking that. So we have our core members of our Joint Cybersecurity Task Force, as I enumerated earlier, but we also partner with the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity, and Infrastructure Security Agency. Y'all are remembering. Good snap. That's awesome. We partner with DHS CISA. We partner with our FBI counterparts, Secret Service. We all bring every capability and resource to bear, even for the smallest of counties in North Carolina, which you would think would be the lowest impact to the state. We bring that full force of our federal partners as well as our state partners to assist these counties. And if you can't tell by now, I'm very passionate about doing this. It's a service that's vitally needed for this state and others. Thank you for the question.
All right, well, we'll go over here, and then we'll come back to the middle.
What's the worst ransomware incident you've had to tackle?
Ooh, good question. Good question. What is the worst ransomware incident that you've seen in your time at North Carolina Department of Information Technology?
Well, my most challenging ransomware incident was actually learning how to pronounce Sotonokabe. But beyond that, we had a particular county, and at the interest of protecting the county and their confidentiality, I'm not going to identify them, but essentially all county infrastructure was crippled by ransomware. And the mantra in the incident response field, cybersecurity, incident response field, nothing? Are we done with that? Okay. The mantra is that slow is fast. When we are made aware of a cybersecurity incident, okay, nobody snapped at all. Thank you. That's a courtesy snap. When we're made aware of an incident, oftentimes the immediate reaction first is shock of the affected party. How can this happen to me? We've invested in a firewall, and they think that that's potentially a magic pill or that would keep them from being subject to a ransomware incident. So after they get over the shock in this particular instance, when the county manager and the senior IT leadership from the county realized that, hey, this is real and this is affecting life safety, this is affecting our ability to operate and serve citizens, once they came to that realization, we show up on site. We identify what needs to happen from from threat hunting to identify other areas of infection, from forensics to identify patient zero, so we can learn more about the attack methods and come alongside them and help them restore their services in a way that will keep them from being reinfected. So in the case of this particular ransomware incident, the county was essentially down for 3-4 weeks. They had to resort to implementing their continuity of operations plan and go to manual methods of serving citizens. And that's what's at stake here. You don't know what going to the paper and pen method will mean to your ability to serve citizens or a local government's ability to do so. We've become so reliant on technology that frankly, oftentimes we become complacent in the dangers that are associated with how we check email. So that particular instance, approximately 3 to 4 weeks, the county was severely impacted, but we came back, we came alongside them, helped them restore their service, and they're better for it, and hopefully they learn from past mistakes.
Excellent. We have a question right here, I believe, and then we've got one more gift card to give away. No? Okay, well, that's your loss.
Hey, so your primary users are other government entities, state of North Carolina. I'm curious about a scenario of a private enterprise that might need your help that maybe operates public key infrastructure, things like Colonial Pipeline. I mean, what if somebody came to you like that and said, I could use some help?
So there's an overlap between public entities, private entities. Do you also help contractors, vendors, and other members of the public?
Certainly. So our primary focus is life safety and whatever that entails. We also have a particular focus on critical infrastructure and key resources, whether that be government provided or in the private sector, a hospital. So we do have a focus that extends beyond local governments. It's not in all cases, but again, keeping critical infrastructure at the forefront of that discussion.
And then our last question will be coming to you from over here.
I was so glad you mentioned how you read email. My question is cell phones, Wi-Fi. For years, I've been told that Wi-Fi is not safe. It's inherently less safe than a hard, network connection. At my house, I try to only use network connection. I don't use Wi-Fi for banking or anything that is sensitive. Is that still true? I'm asking because everybody's using apps for secure things, and I don't know if I'm either missing out or if I'm just being safer. Could you address Wi-Fi versus non-Wi-Fi, please?
The question is, Wi-Fi once had a reputation of being less secure. Is that still true today?
You can't talk about cybersecurity. Thank you. We're finishing up here strong. You can't talk about cybersecurity without mentioning risk. And you have to take a measured approach with your own risk acceptance. Let's talk about Wi-Fi for a second. And Chris Beal did a great job of pointing out simple hygiene steps that you can take to increase your own personal cyber maturity, but also to assist you in your day-to-day role, whether you work in a cybersecurity role or not. So with regard to Wi-Fi, there are a number of different things that you can do to set up your mobile device to keep you more secure. You can not select auto join to a known network. You can always use a VPN, and you can take advantage of every multi-factor authentication opportunity that is presented, whether it be the mobile app, a website, what have you. Wi-Fi networks are inherently less secure, but you can mitigate your risks. You can manage your own personal risk down to an acceptable level and use it with confidence, but you can't use it without taking the necessary hygiene steps. I think that's my time, so thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more big hand for Rob Main. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes RTP180 for this October of high five. This October of 2021. Yeah, we're air high-fiving everybody. For those of you who have questions that were not answered, some of our speakers may be sticking around afterwards. Feel free to catch up with them and ask them questions to your heart's content. Next month, we are going to be paying it forward. That's right, third Thursday in November. Pay It Forward, we'll be talking about charity, giving back, and other ways you can make a better world. And then on October 26th, right here at the Frontier, a mini Comic-Con and costume party. It'll be family friendly, and there will be cash prizes for the best cosplay. Come out 5 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, October 26th. Get spoopy with us, dress up, and enjoy a good time. On behalf of RTP180, presented by RTI International, I've been your MC, Wade Minter, saying thanks for coming out. Beer will be opening in just a minute. Thank you and have a safe journey home. Good night, everybody.